Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the YANYIN Moonlight Ultra. I know this is an older IEM, it's been out maybe now for 5 months, but I had the opportunity to now review it, and obviously I took it and here we are. Anyway, this is the box that it comes in, a simple box. I mean, you look at it and when you consider that we are talking about a $1,300 roughly IEM, the box doesn't really give you any idea of the sort of price. You look at it and it's a very basic box. You open it up and inside basically the whole thing or all the equipment comes inside of a case, which I'll show you now in a second. Okay, so this is basically the box. Simple, nothing, no frills, very unassuming, definitely not what you would be expecting when you're paying this kind of money. Anyway, that's not what is important. What is important is then this case. And if you guys remember, the original Moonlight brought this case, which was praised by a couple of reviewers, and it is a very nice case. I mean, fair enough, it's not pocketable, but it's got more than enough space for you to safely and securely store away your IEM. In this case, it was the original Moonlight, and basically what they've done is the same thing here. Although they finished it in this, well, this is not real leather, but they've given it a more kind of I don't know, I don't really know what to call this, a realistic look, I guess. The logo embossed over there, a little faceplate here with the name Moonlight. You open it up and it's basically the same thing as the previous model. So the IEM came sitting over here. It's got a little tool here for switching for adjusting the switches. Some tips, okay. I am using the stock tips, by the way, okay, some wide bores and some narrow bores, and that's it. I mean, nice, classy, yes, fair enough, like I said before, not exactly pocketable, but in terms of security, there's no issues there. As for the IEM itself, as for the Ultra itself, nice enough cable, nothing really that you could falter. The only thing I guess you could say is it would have been nice if it was a modular cable, but it's not the deal breaker. The cable is nice. It's got this kind of cloth finish on it. A little bit on the tough side. It doesn't really like wind up or it's not really pliable. It's a little bit tough, the cable. As for the IEMs themselves, full resin shell. I personally think the shell is very nice. I think it's got a nice finish to it. The faceplate, it's got this kind of gives you this vibe of different colors of blue and green and so on. It's nice. I mean, I can understand that obviously tastes are different and not everybody might be in the same page as I am when it comes to looks, but it doesn't offend me. I didn't find it offensive or anything. I actually found it was nice. The whole shell is on the darker color. I mean, you can not, I mean, you just can't see inside. It's got some information there saying what is the actual model, which I think is always very nice when manufacturers do that. 2-pin connector, and that's it. I mean, there's really not much more that I can say about its physical appearance. It fits nicely in my ears. It's not a heavy IEM considering the number of drivers which are inside, but we'll get to that in a second. It fits nicely. With these tips, I'm actually able to get a nice deep fit, and it's fine. There's nothing absolutely wrong with it. Okay, so let me just put this away here for a second, and let's talk a little bit about its configuration. The original YANYIN Moonlight, which is this one over here, a little bit more understated, the faceplate appearance, but also very nice. This is not the original cable. The original one, basically, I mean, the newer one is obviously a little bit bigger, as you can see. Not significantly thicker, it's just a little bit bigger. Okay, but the original Moonlight was and is a tribrid, much like the Ultra. And it sported a 1DD, 4 BAs from Knowles, and 2 ESTs from Sonyan. Its price, and well, you can get it now for just under $600, and its price has always been around that value. There was the Mahina, which was a collab with HBB, which was basically the same thing, just with a little touch more bass. which had to do with the tuning of the Moonlight. The tuning of the Moonlight was very, very neutral when it came to the bass. There was nothing that was boosted or anything of the sort, and it was I would say a neutral. Not bright, because it wasn't, I didn't find it to be bright, but it was a neutral with a slightly boosted mids and treble. But for the sake of being easier to understand, let's call it a neutral bright tuning, okay? This now, the Ultra, sports the same single DD, well, not the same single DD, but it also sports a single DD. Also has 4 BAs, although now the division of the BAs is slightly different. 2 of them or nulls and for the high frequencies, and then you have 1 nulls for the mids, 1 sonyon for the mids, and then we have 4 ESTs instead of 2. So we're basically talking, roughly what we're talking here is that they've doubled the number of ESTs. They've added the switches which allow for some tuning versatility, 2 switches, okay, and they've changed slightly the configuration of the BAs being used for the mids. And that brings with it the price tag of $1,289, which in my opinion, and I think that was the main reason why maybe the Ultra didn't get as much love as it could have gotten, it immediately puts it into a different category or different territory of IEMs that it's going to be compared to. In my humble opinion, the price of the Ultra should have been no more than $800, no more. 700 to 750 actually would have been the ideal. If I had any say in it, I wouldn't even go above much 700. Anywhere between 700 and 750, I think would have been more than a fair price for it, given that you have the switches and you have a slightly nicer case, and we have a nicer cable, and we have the extra 2 ESTs. So it's anywhere between 700 and 750, which would still mean a $150, $160 increase over the original. But that would have been, I think, more sensible, and would have placed it in comparison with other tribrids, which are more or less centered at that same value, and it would have allowed it to compete more successfully with the more expensive ones, which ultimately it's being faced or put up against. Okay, so I mean, there's been a lot of comparisons between it and the Monarch Mark II, Monarch Mark III, and it's inevitable, because those are, let's say, some of the top dogs in terms of tribrids at around the $1,000 give or take, and this obviously gets pitched against that straight away. And when you get pitched up against something like those IEMs, which are successful in their own right, and you, on top of that, you still have a slightly higher price tag, there must be something then that's unique, that's special about it. And although it is a special IEM, and although it is a very good sounding IEM, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead, it doesn't have enough, in my opinion, again, to justify its price. Okay. Anyway, what have I selected here to compare the Ultra with? I've got here. I would have liked to have had more tribrids. Obviously, I would have liked to have had the Monarch, but I wasn't able to get it, so I had to compare it with some of the IEMs that I do have. So I've selected the Soundrime, the DTE 900, which is also a tribrid. It's a single DD, 4 BAs, and 4 ESTs. So in essence, it's basically the same thing as in terms of its configuration as the Ultra. I've got here one of my, and the DTE 900 is one of my favorite IEMs, by the way. I've got here another one of my favorite IEMs, if not one of my top 3 IEMs of all the IEMs that I own, which is the PENON Volt, which is a 1 DD, 2 BA, and 4 EST, so it loses 2 BAs. Obviously the original Moonlight. And then I've got on this end here 2 very, very good all BA sets, which I thought made sense to be here, which is the Night Oblivion Butastur, and the Our Audio Neon Pro. And they made sense to be here because as all BA sets go, they are competing with way more expensive sets. I remember when I did my comparison with the VX, with the Anole VX, I didn't find the Anole VX to have enough to justify its 2.5 times price tag over the Neon Pro, for example. And the Butastur, in my opinion, still is able to outperform ever so slightly the Neon Pro, and it outperforms it in terms of being a little bit more smoother in the way that it presents its treble. I know some people might not agree with me, but to my ears, that's how it comes across. Okay. Anyway, so I've selected these 5 IEMs. As I was mentioning, with regards to the original Moonlight, it had a neutralish bass, everything set within a very tight window of operation, and the sound that came across was a very detailed, very clean sound, but it sometimes lacked a little bit of extra bass weight. So it was a little bit more genre specific. You had to, if you were listening to some jazz or some vocals, female or male vocals, it would, would do fine with that. But then if you were listening to something which was a little bit more high energy, if you wanted to listen to some rock or something, then you would start seeing its shortcomings. It just didn't have enough weight in the bass to be able to give those genres the necessary energy, the necessary guts, with the Ultra, in essence, even though the switch there obviously does change slightly the bass and as well then the above, let's say 5K area, in essence the mids, upper mids and treble are more or less the same as on the original, although more energetic. But what is the biggest difference is the way how the bass is done. While the bass there was very neutralish, okay, over here we have that tuck style of bass, like the variations, like the Chopin, like many IEMs that we are starting to see now doing it. So we have a tuck that very quickly goes goes flat, so there's no bleed into the mids, no added warmth or unnecessary warmth added to the mids, and conferring a sound on the lower frequencies which is more sub-bass focused. However, the interesting is the way that they've been able to actually do it. They've actually given it more than enough slam, in my opinion. Fair enough. If I am to compare purely in terms of slam, and I compare it, for example, to the DTE 900 or to even the Volt, these two will outdo it. And they will outdo it because of the way that they've been done, although both of them have been done in completely different manners. But they will definitely have more mid-bass thump or impact than the Ultra does. But again, I repeat, the slam that it does have is, in my opinion, more than sufficient. Okay, compared then to the original, and I'll make straight away that comparison there. Bass is to say that the bass is better, it's not entirely fair, because I'm sure that a person that is not a bass freak or that doesn't appreciate bass as much as I do, he will say that the original is better. But I think for the sake of we saying, okay, how versatile one IM is and how how more capable it is with different genres, the Ultra is definitely more capable than the original, no questions asked. It's got the necessary weight to give songs and give certain vocals that more fun and engaging presentation, while the original would be ultimately, you could say, more clinical in its presentation, more sterile. This definitely does have that fun factor coming in. In terms of the mids, very comparable, except for the fact that it's got more energy, which is to be expected. Otherwise, then the mids would just close down very much the sound, and it would become a darker sounding. And then in the treble, I find personally that the treble is being better executed than there. It's just that little extra smoother. It's just that little extra more well executed. It doesn't seem to let's say want to become harsh or lose its composure as volume is increased as on the original. And I think that sensation was more down to the fact that you didn't have enough bass to actually complement it. The same way as treble will, by upper mids and treble will complement bass and give the bass frequencies that added snappiness that we want. The reverse is also true. So you want that bass note to introduce certain harmonics that will make the treble lose some of its excessive metallicness, excessive coldness, and give it that desired warmth to sound clean, detailed, crisp, but with that that natural warmth. And that's the I think the biggest difference here. Not that doesn't sound natural, it does, but it just sounds too clinical compared to the Ultra. The Ultra just sounds overall more balanced, more correct, in my opinion at least. So better bass, mids are about the same, and better executed treble. Okay. In terms of its technicalities, I found the soundstage here to be decent enough in terms of width. I would have liked a little bit more height, but decent enough in terms of width. Imaging I found to be pretty decent. Actually, of those two characteristics, I would definitely say imaging is the better one. It didn't have really any issues, especially with the position of the switches that I have now, which is let me just show you the switches, which is with, oh my god, this doesn't want, there, okay, with both switches up, oh my god, I'm trying to show you here, both switches up, as you can see. Okay, with both switches up, it just has the right amount of treble energy and upper mid energy to allow for very good imaging. It pinpoints instruments very well, very clearly. Even when it's a more complex track, it doesn't really struggle. Everything just comes out very nice. I didn't have a single song, that at least of the ones that I usually listen to, that I was having any difficulties in pinpointing things or anything of the sort. Detailed retrieval, very good. And again, and finally, timbre and tonality, very much correct, at least to my liking. Now, you might say, oh, okay, but then that's full score then for all the technicalities. Yes, it is a full score for the technicalities. The technicalities are very capable. However, the problem is they are not capable, in my opinion, for a IM of this price. And why do I say that? Because when, for example, I take the Butastur and I compare its technicalities to the Ultra, there's no comparison. Way better detailed retrieval, much bigger soundstage, much better imaging, resolution, everything on the Butastur in terms of its technical capabilities is far superior. And we're talking about an IM which costs $550 roughly. So it's an IM at less than half the price, which technically just is more capable. It's end of story. There's the only thing, honestly, that you will maybe perhaps prefer this over that is that the bass here has got that extra weight because it's a DD. It's just got that extra weight, that extra impact to make them things sound a little bit more fuller and possibly clinical as on the Butastur. I don't find the Butastur to be sounding clinical in any way, because I feel that the way they've been able to match the whole frequency range, it's been very well executed. And what I say about the Butastur, I very much apply as well to the Neon Pro. The Neon Pro as well, technically, much bigger soundstage than the Ultra, much bigger. Better imaging, better detailed retrieval, better resolution, and timbre and tonality. Even though these two are all BA sets, even the timbre and tonality of these two sets, I find it to be more realistic, more correct to my liking than on the Moonlight. Okay, and again, if I was comparing these two with this one, and I was comparing IEMs at roughly the same value, so I mean that's 550, that's about 720, and this was, let's say for the sake of argument, that price bracket of $750, then I would say, okay, the technicalities are really good, and although they lose out to these two, they lose out slightly. Okay, but the reality is that this cost $1,300 almost. And for that, I was expecting to see technicalities, especially in terms of soundstage and detailed retrieval, to be better than what they are. It's not so much the timbre and the tonality, because timbre and tonality is very much a relative thing and depending on your personal taste. Timbre and tonality, I could actually even say, for the sake of being more fair, and that the timbre and tonality is good across all of these three. It's very equal across all of these three. Okay, the resolution again, fine, very equal across all these three. Now, where you definitely see differences, and it's very evident, is in terms of the soundstage. It's very blatant. These two have a way bigger soundstage than the Ultra, and detailed retrieval as well, way more detailed retrieval there. Although again, I would accept that detailed retrieval, okay, it's going to be something that you either take as an important fact for you or not. But imaging, again, once more, the imaging on these two sets is you know, fantastic, while the imaging here just lags behind. Okay, so going back to what I was saying and comparing it to the original Moonlight, I would say that in terms of frequency response, yes, better than the original. In terms of technicalities, yes, on par, maybe slightly better than the original, but it loses out because of the price. Since I've been talking now already, in terms of the technicalities, at least with regards to the Butas Tour and the Neon Pro, the only area in terms of the whole frequency response of these three IMs where, again, I will repeat this, you might maybe be tempted to prefer the Ultra over the Butas Tour or the Neon Pro is in terms of the bass and how it's executed. You do notice that it's got more sub-bass rumble than either one of these, although they are quite capable, taking into consideration they are BAs, and that's all down to the fact that they're using Sony 38, the 38 series BAs for the bass, and those BAs are known for being very capable in bass reproduction. But yes, the Ultra does edge those two out in that aspect. Funny enough, in terms of its mid-bass impact, they very equal. It's more of a sub-bass thing than really a mid-bass impact or slam kind of thing. All right. Excuse me. Which now takes me then to the DTE 900 and the PENON Volt. These two, well, the DTE also has switches which affect the bass, and mainly the bass is what's affected here. While here it's a little bit the bass that's affected, and then the let's say the upper mids for treble, and that's affected. Over here, the bass is mainly what is changed or what is affected by the tuning switches. And the interesting thing about the DTE, especially when you look at the graph, is you look at the graph and you say to yourself, oh my god, this has got way too much mid bass, this thing is going to be a nightmare. And that's not what happens. When you actually listen to it, yes, fair enough, it's not going to be as clean sounding as the Ultra in certain occasions, and I can give you some examples. For example, Elephant from Carol Duboc, on the Ultra, it just sounds a little bit more correct, more natural than it does on the DTE 900 because of that extra bloat that we find on the mid bass. Okay, but you know, and I said it when I listened to it. The fact is, the DTE 900 pulls off some sort of magic that PENON usually also pulls off, which is it sounds absolutely fantastic. And very few songs, I mean, The Lady's Not Amused from Jeff Cascaro, it sounds phenomenal on the DTE 900. Phenomenal. It's got that slam that just gives that song, that those drums, that energy that, for example, here, it's a little bit more subdued. On the same note, if I, for example, compare Twilight from Brian Simpson, I prefer it here than what I do on the DTE 900. Okay? If I compare House of Groove from Eugene Groove, on the DT 900, it's a little bit more, it's got a little extra slam. Okay, yeah, basically the difference between these two will be on that extra slam because of the fact that here we have this really big thick bass, okay, while over here we have that tucked bass which loses a little bit of that mid bass impact, and so that on specific songs you will see the DTE edging it out. In terms of the mids and high frequency on the DTE compared to the Ultra, I would say the Ultra edges out the mids of the DTE. And in terms of the treble, it's again the same situation with the bass. It's going to be very dependent on what song you're listening to. However, having said that, I think more times the Ultra comes out on top. There's more times where the Ultra is able to edge out the DTE 900 in terms of the treble. Okay, let me see here, for example, Sweat from the JK Reviv remix from Princess Frasier. I like it more here than what I do there. There it gets to a point where it's kind of getting a little bit splashy, the treble. Okay, and again, guys, please take this or keep this in mind. I'm being hard here because obviously we're talking roughly $700 for the DTE, and this is $1,300 for this. So I expect those things to be well done. But now, if on the same token I compare the price and what one offers and what the other offers, the better value for money is the DTE 900, definitely. That's why I was saying in the beginning, this should have been priced at about $700. If this was priced at $700, this would be the better IEM of the two. That's the reality. Even though it doesn't have the same mid-bass slam, this would be the more correct overall sounding IEM of these two. But because there's a monumental price difference here, this offers more value for money, more fun, it's more engaging, okay? And then finally the Volt. And the Volt, I mean, when I did my review of the Volt, I said it and I repeat it and I stand by it. It is one of my favorite sounding IEMs, end of story, period. You listen to this and the mids are straight away would, you know, get to you. They, I mean, they are really well done. The execution of the mids is phenomenal. I mean, Crazy from Julio Iglesias. You know, it's okay. Maybe it's not a song that a lot of you listen to, but you listen to it on here and it just sounds surreal. It honestly sounds surreal. Where does then, or where can you say that the Ultra can edge out slightly the Volt? Okay, it can edge out slightly the Volt by having a little bit more of that mid bass, of that sub bass rumble. And for example, in No Scrubs from TLC, in that minute 120 to 1 minute 40, you feel a sub bass rumble there on that part. That you feel it there, but it's just more present here. Definitely more present here. Okay, and then you also for me, it's not the case, but some of you might prefer the extra extension that this has in terms of the upper mids and treble, because everything here on the Volt, and when I show you the graphs now, you'll see what I mean. It's very flat. Everything is very neutral. There's no, except for then the upper area there, you know, above 6K, where you start seeing a little bit extra energy. Everything is very neutral. Everything sits within a very tight window of operation, and that's, I think, the secret for not only the insanely good mids that it has, and then that bass, which is, I mean, you look at it and you think, okay, but it's got that kind of bass that some of you that might recall the MIM Dark Magician, the original one. You looked at the graph and you think, okay, this is going to be a little bit light on the bass, and then when you actually started listening to it, and if you gave it some power, that bass just came alive and was just tremendous. That's this, but even better. This is that, but better. Better bass, more present, more energy, more slam, amazing resolution. So that's it. Just to recap again here quickly, how does then the Ultra, you know, fare up against these IEMs? Forgetting price, let's forget price. Compared to the original, it's better. End of story. Okay. Compared to the DTE 900, very evenly matched. It will be very much song dependent. If you like to listen to rock, I would say that would be the better option, the DTE 900. If you like listening to vocals, especially females, probably that also still is the better one. But if you like male vocals, I would probably say maybe this one can be the winner here. But it's honestly, it's very, very much genre dependent and song dependent. Okay, so these two, I would say, they kind of tie each other. All right, compared to the Volt. And maybe there's a bit of bias on my side. I'm not going to deny it, but I prefer the Volt. For me, the Volt is a better IM than the Ultra. It's overall balance, the coherence of the whole frequency range. Technically, it's just better. That for me, it's just more satisfying. The only time that I really, you know, on one or two songs was, okay, I would have liked just a little bit more twinklies and sparklies on here. But, I mean, those times that happened was so few. And one of them, for example, was, where is it here? Where is it here? Not this one. One of those few times that I felt that. It was on A Sentimental Mood from Cecile Norby. I just like the fact that the treble energy here is just that little extra more than over there, and it just gave her voice just that little extra, little bit more of cleanliness. That's all. Compared to the YANYIN, I've already mentioned the original. Compared then to the Butas Tour and the Neon Pro. Compared to the Butas Tour is a better IM as well, in my opinion. It is a better IM, and on the same token, the Neon Pro is also a better IM. Okay. sound wise they are better IM. They only really lose out, if you can even consider that as losing out, is in terms of the bass. All right. If I now take price into account, I mean, then you already know what the answer is. The biggest, I think, honestly, the biggest obstacle that the Ultra had was, since the tuning was not so radically different, or so it was not, there wasn't such a radical jump as compared to the original, then the price should have maintained itself as well, more or less within the same realm, and shouldn't have been increased as much as it was increased. That's my take. And that's it, guys. I mean, there's really not much more I can say. I'll show you now quickly the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the YANYIN Moonlight Ultra. These are basically the two settings, the 00 and 11 setting. As you can see, the 11 setting just gives you a slight little extra boost here on the bass, so we got maybe like an extra 2 dBs. And then yes, it boosts this area here and this area here, so the area between let's say 6 and 10, and then the area above like 12k gets boosted. This is the setting that I preferred listening to it, and yeah, that's basically it. And I did all the comparisons with this setting, so I'm just going to take away the other one. We don't need that. All right, so that's the setting that I use. As you can see, it's got that tuck bass, like I mentioned. It doesn't sound as prominent as what you would think. The balance that is obtained is actually much better than what you would think. It's not overpowering in any way here. Why? Because most of the energy is below 100 hertz, okay? And besides being below 100 hertz, it's a part of the frequency range where, you know, except for EDM and stuff and other stuff like that, it's not that really that overly emphasized. So if you actually look carefully here, if you will see, the mids, upper mids and treble are basically at the same level as, let's say, the 80-90 hertz area. And that's what this between 80 hertz, let's say, and about 5k, that's the meat of everything. And they're very much pretty balanced, okay? So tucks in, touches me, that goes flat by 200 hertz, shoots across a really nice progressive pinna gain. We're talking about a pinna gain of 74, about 6 dBs of pinna gain, so nothing wrong there, you know, very well done. You know, dip at around 5k area, so no sibilance, and then enough treble. I mean, it's honestly really, really good. It's by itself, and if you don't compare it with anything, you know, technically, like I was mentioning, you will be impressed. It's got, you know, good soundstage, good imaging, good resolution, good detail retrieval, fantastic. It's when you start comparing it with others that you start saying, okay, well, maybe it's good, but it's not that good. All right, so let's compare it now first here with the original YANYIN. All right, and this is the original YANYIN. I've normalized it at 1k. Let me actually just, there we go, it's normalized at 1k, and you can see that the mids are basically the same thing. You know, upper mids, but very much the same thing. It's just a question of energy. The bass is where you notice that everything is just like way completely, I mean, it's totally different. Okay, what that means is that then this area here is the area that jumps out, because we don't have that, we have so much neutrality from back here, so this ends up sounding more clinical. Technically, the funny thing is that technically you end up getting a sensation that maybe things like image soundstage shot is actually better on the original than on the Ultra. Although, you know, when you start listening carefully, you end up seeing that no, it's not so much like that. It's actually technically the Ultra does have enough to justify it being a superior IEM. All right, so that's the Ultra against the original. Now, compared to the SoundRhyme DTE 900, there we go. The SoundRhyme, the DTE 900, I mean, the graph speaks for itself. I mean, you want bloated bass? That's bloated bass there for you, plenty of it. I can, for the sake of also you guys understanding better, just quickly show you the other settings. SoundRhyme DTE 900. So the setting that I have here that I used is, sorry, the setting that I used for the test was the 10 setting, okay? And the setting that I will now be showing you, my apologies, is, so if I'm using the 0 setting, for example, basically the bass remains the same. You just have a little bit less as compared to the mids, so it just skews the sound towards being more mid-centric or mid-focused. If I, on the other hand, go for the 1-1 setting, where is it? 1-1 setting, 1-1 setting. Okay, the 1-1 setting over here. It boosts a little bit as well. Let me actually just put it up there so you guys can see. It boosts a little bit as well. The mids, upper mids, and treble a little bit more. You got a little bit more of an energy bump there, especially across there. And in my opinion, what that does, and that's why I don't like that setting, it just makes it showcases a little bit what I was mentioning earlier, that the DT900 can get a little bit not rowdy is not the word, aggressive is not also the word. It just loses its composure a little bit, you know. And obviously, when we're talking about an IEM of this value, we don't want it to lose its composure. We want it to maintain itself. If I'm going to compare it to an IEM of $100, then it's not losing its composure. It's perfect. But it's $700. So at $700, the margin for it not being capable is obviously reduced. So ultimately, what I did, I used it on the 1-0 setting, which gives a little bit of a boost in the bass here and keeps things nice and tidy in the mids and the treble. And compared to the Ultra, you know, the mids, you do notice a difference, and ultimately, yes, like I mentioned, I would give the mids to the Ultra and the treble also to the Ultra. It's the mid bass bump that the DT900 has that not only compensates for some aggressiveness that you get here in the 5K area on the DT900, but also gives it a little bit more fun factor. So, you know, if I have to summarize it better, or if I have to classify them better, I would say the DT900 is about fun, while the Ultra is about being correct sound-wise, but with a good component or degree of fun as well associated. Okay, so that's that. So I've shown you the DT900. I have shown you the YANYIN, the original. I'm going to show you now the PENON Volt. Okay, and that's the Volt there for you guys. Again, centered at 1K roughly. Look, I think the graph speaks for itself. Everything is very, very smooth, very, very neutralish. But it's amazing how good that bass comes across, because we're talking about a bass gain of roughly, so, excuse me, 74 to 79, so 5 dBs of bass gain, a little bit less for the mids and upper mids. The way it just comes together is what is fabulous. Okay, in terms of like I mentioned, I would have liked a little bit more twinkly and sparkly. It's a combination of this area here between let's say 7K and 12. It's the combination of here that just a little bit extra, you know, on 1 or 2 songs. Okay, I would have liked it, and in those 2 songs the Ultra does come out on top. But for the most part, well, not for the most part, for the rest, no, the Ultra, for me, okay, and with a bit of bias, I will admit, for me the Volt is a better sounding IM. It just sounds more like I like it, period. You know, it's very much like the same situation as the Oxygen was for me for a long time. You know, the Oxygen was the best single DD that I had heard, and I was, I mean, when I even got the MIM Dark Magician to listen to it, I didn't prefer the MIM Dark Magician against the Oxygen, especially not when you consider that it was like $600. If you're telling me it was $300, then okay, maybe. But $600 for a single DD that we have now come to find out that, for example, is the same driver used in the XSL X1, which costs $55 or something like that. So it's the same driver, exactly same driver, which, you know, goes to show and open up another can of worms, which is sometimes we're paying a lot of money for IEMs thinking that, oh, the parts inside are very, no, they're not, my friends, no, they are not. So that's the PENON. And now the two BA, let's say, proposals. The first one here that I'm going to show you is the Neon Pro. Mids on the Neon Pro are phenomenal mids. soundstage, imaging, detailed retrieval, phenomenal. Honestly, really, really, really good. And the bass has got just the right energy to complement everything properly. And this is with the bass switch on. It's for me, it's just a better IM than the Ultra. The Ultra is only able to give it a little bit extra rumble and give that tonality, okay? But the Neon Pro is fantastic. And on the same note, and just that little extra more polished, the Night Oblivion, the Butastur. Say, the mids very much like the Neon Pro. If you've actually put them in, very similar. Let me just change the color of the Neon Pro. Let me make it green so it stands out a little bit more. Okay. So if you look at the mids, it's not. Let me take away here. It's not on the mids that you see the biggest difference here between the Neon Pro and the Butastur. It's in the bass, although it's not this big of a difference as they show here, and a little bit there on the extension past 10K. Now, what you do notice when you listen to the Butastur and the Neon Pro is that the Butastur just sounds that extra smoother, and I think it's that the slight little extra amount of bass, and this is a delicate one because it's not really. It's just the way that they've executed things here between one side and the other. And I think maybe that also has to do with the number of drivers and one IEM doing a specific thing and the number of drivers on the other IEM doing a specific part of the frequency range. So that balance between how many drivers are doing the mids, how many drivers are doing the highs on one and the other is what ultimately, I think, distinguishes them. Both of them have the same number of drivers in the bass, okay? And they sound basically identical in the bass. It's the way that interaction of the bass with the mids that then makes the difference. And I just think, in my opinion, that the Butastur just edges out the Neon Pro ever so slightly. And then the fact that it's also cheaper, okay, then makes it, in my opinion at least, a better IEM. But compared to here, the Ultra, which is what we want to know, let me take away here the Neon Pro. Compared here to the Ultra, the Butastur is just better, much better technically, bigger soundstage, better imaging, better detailed retrieval, female and male vocals, phenomenal, and the bass has got just that little extra amount there, although it might not have the same sub bass, but it's got that amount of mid bass impact that just complements the whole thing just very nicely. And it yes, it's a BA set, but it just sounds very correct. Very DD-like, very DD in its ability and its tonality, okay? And that's it, guys. I mean, there's really nothing more I can say. I do believe and I do think that the Ultra is a capable IM, and it is a good IM. It does play well. I did enjoy it, and I do enjoy listening to it. I only genuinely think that its biggest flaw, or its not flaw, its biggest obstacle was the price point that it was placed at. YANYIN should have been a little bit wiser in that aspect, and they should have, like I mentioned, $700 to $750. That would have been the sweet spot. It would have competed with these IMs that I just mentioned now, much more, on the same level. Because sonically, and that's the thing here, sonically it doesn't have anything which just makes it stand out over the others. Technically especially, it's not as capable as some of the other sets here. Okay. Anyway, guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions you might have or anything, just please feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer as quickly as possible. You take care now. Bye bye.